This is Happiness Solved with America's happiness coach, Sandee Scarlatta.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am so happy you're here. So before I introduce today's guest, I want to share with you my 4 simple tips on self-love. You see, so many people are looking for love, and what they do not realize is that they need to learn to love themselves first in order to have a healthy, loving relationship with someone else or their soulmate. In a Psychology Today article by April Eldemeyer stated that more self-love will attract healthier relationships. So tip number 1 is forgive yourself and others. When you are holding on to bitterness for someone else or for yourself, forgiveness is essential. Remember, forgiveness is letting go of the bitterness so you are free to love instead. Tip number 2, stop comparing yourself. So often we compare ourselves to others, wishing we had someone else's looks, their money, their relationship, the car, the house. But when you compare yourself to someone else, all you're doing is reinforcing that you're not good enough. And you are good enough. Tip number 3, stop criticizing yourself. That critical voice in your head is sabotaging any chance to love yourself and to love someone else. Instead, talk to yourself like you are talking to a child that is upset, being gentle and compassionate. And lastly, tip number 4, accept yourself. You need to work on accepting yourself exactly the way you are. Understand and know that you are perfect. So if you'd like to learn more about me, you can visit my website at www.sandeescarlatta.com. So thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today's guest is Kyle Sullivan. Kyle has such an amazing backstory that I can't wait for you to hear. And he has this program that's called Unleash the Champ, and he's going to tell us all about it. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Kyle. How are you today?
Sandee, I'm doing great. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too. I read your short blurb that you provided to me. Thank you very much. And I'm real excited for this conversation because it sounds like it could get really juicy.
Hey, I love that. Let's go as deep and juicy as you want.
All right. So, Kyle, where are you located?
I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Nice. How's things in Oklahoma?
It's well. We're experiencing, the couple weeks of fall that we get, and so it's good.
Fantastic. So let's start from your beginning because you mentioned you were a D1 athlete. So let's start there because I want to hear this whole story of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so the D1 athlete is a bit of a curveball based on my upbringing. So I played sports all my life. I wasn't the boy that liked cars and trucks. I liked footballs and baseballs. And so sports was everything. Played football, baseball, did powerlifting in high school. So I graduated high school. I tried to walk onto the football team of the university I was going to. And, obviously your listeners can't see me, but Sandee, I'm about 5'8" on a good day with the right amount of hair product in my hair. With a strong wind lifting me up. So I just didn't make the cut. I didn't make the team.
Was this for football?
This was for football.
Okay. And just by the way, on a side note, I don't know very many men that weren't totally obsessed with sports, especially football.
It's still a good bit of a obsession.
Of course.
And so I realized, okay, this thing I've been building for is done. And through a series of events, I meet the captain of the university's cheerleading team. And so, again, they say, hey, have you ever thought about being a cheerleader? Now, Sandee, I'm obsessed with sports growing up. Played football and baseball in high school.
Right.
Last thing I wanted to be was a cheerleader. But at 18 years old, when a pretty girl comes up and says, do you want to be a cheerleader? and I see her and all of her friends, and they're going to pay me, all of a sudden it didn't sound like a bad idea.
Well, I've always thought that's probably the best job any young man could
It
have because you're throwing the girls up in the air. I mean, come on.
absolutely, yeah. So I took a month and trained with the team and then tried out, and so I made the competitive cheer squad at the university. And
Nice.
so did that. We competed nationally 2 years in a row while I was at that university, and yeah, so my D1 athlete was as a competitive cheerleader.
Awesome. I think that's very commendable in so many levels, in so many ways, and good for you. That's awesome. Because I would imagine that a lot of egos, the male ego, would get in the way, right?
Oh yeah, it came with a ton of questions and people, this was 2005, and so people thinking all kinds of different things, and you just kind of have to let them think what they think. And I knew who I was and knew who I was trying to be, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And I had never done any kind of gymnastics, any kind of tumbling, any kind of anything like that. And Sandy, I tell you, I got injured more and more bumps and bruises in cheerleading than I ever did in powerlifting, football, or baseball.
Wow. Wow. Well, a favorite saying that a friend of mine told me years ago, and I hold on it to this day, is what other people think about me is none of my business.
That's so true. That is so true. And people judge what they don't understand, and a lot of
That's
people
right.
didn't understand it, and so they judged it, and that's none of my business, as you said.
Yeah. That's their problem, not yours.
Exactly.
So cool. Okay, so what then you also mentioned that you went from D1 to being a drug dealer.
Yeah. So that was while I was in college,
Okay.
and so the backstory there is so much of my childhood, middle school, high school, was my big desire was acceptance, and I think that's most of us. We want to be accepted by our friend groups. We want to be accepted by our parents, and as we're developing as people, we can sometimes get in situations where we think, oh well, this is being celebrated, my behavior is being celebrated, so I'm going to repeat it, and that's what it was for me. I got into partying when I got into high school. It kind of started there and intensified in college. I joined a fraternity. I was on the cheerleading team, going to bars and clubs. It was really the first time that I had freedom outside of my parents' home and having to do their rules and their things. And at 18 years old, I thought I had it all figured out, and it led me to where I was experimenting with different drugs, and there was a few, and a few drugs that I really like. From the moment I tried them, I was like, yeah, this is amazing, because it made me go to a place that I thought I liked more than where I was at.
Yeah.
And so it didn't take long for me to start getting into connections with people that said, you know what, you could make some money doing this. And so I did. And so the whole time I was at that university, I would, I was like a high functioning, drug addict, drug dealer, where I went to class, did the things, and it wasn't until I got jumped at a drug deal I was making at a party that I said, you know what? Maybe this isn't the life I want to live.
Yeah.
And it was, 3 o'clock in the morning. I called a guy that I knew from church, because I went to church in middle school and high school with my parents. And I called him up. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I need effing Jesus. I just didn't abbreviate anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, all right, come over.
Wow. At 3 a.m.
3 a.m. And so we talked through the gospel, talked through Jesus, and he leads me to Christ on his front porch in between drags of a cigarette for me. And I woke up the next day, Sandee, and I said, so what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so I withdrew from the university. I stopped the cheerleading. I got a 9 to 5, and started going to church for myself for the first time. And ever. And so it was a wild ride. It ended up me a year later going back to college in a different state to a Christian university. Ended up getting my degree in Christian studies and in biblical theology. Moved to Oklahoma, where I've been since 2012, and moved here chasing a girl. And luckily, it's worked out. We've been married 8 years. Got two amazing kiddos, 2 under 2.
Wow.
And the little girl just turned 2 on Tuesday of this recording, and my little boy is 2.5 months old.
Wow.
And,
Congratulations.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride. I was a pastor for 11 years once I moved to Oklahoma, and then in the middle of a pandemic, felt so strongly that creating and starting a brand new business would be the right thing to do in the middle of the pandemic. So that's what I've done.
Yeah, a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you still a pastor? Do you do that
No.
on the side? Oh, okay. So you left that, and now you're.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
tell us about your business. So what are you doing? Because that sounds really exciting.
Yes. So the business is called Unleash the Champ, and we coach on personal and professional culture. So, Sandee, your culture is made up of what you teach others, what you tell yourself, and what you tolerate in your world.
I love that.
And so when we can align our culture to the pillars of Unleash the Champ, which is your calling, your heart, your altitude, your mindset, and your performance, then you become the champion you were destined to become, which allows you to do the championship run or your journey or your destiny that is laid out before you.
Nice. That sounds really incredible. So is this a program? Do you have an online course, or tell me a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, so there's two verticals. One is 80% of my business right now is working one-on-one with intra-entrepreneurs that really have solved the money issue, but at what sacrifice? Because what I find in my clients is that once you get to the top of the mountain, more often than not, you don't have anybody to high five. And that's a weird place to be in for people, is they've built so much success, but they can't enjoy it because they've neglected themselves or their relationships, or their mindset is so driven for more that they can't enjoy the little things in life. And when you really drill down to their performance really lies in their professional life, but not their personal life. And so keeping it there on the organizational side, I get to go in and I'm certified in Myers-Briggs and Strength Finder and emotional intelligence and well-versed in Enneagram. And so helping teams and the leaders that lead those teams go from siloed to synergy to unleash the champ of the things that they have and want to become in their organization.
Yeah, I would think that program would be really, desirable for corporations of any size, really.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, because on the professional side with organizations, what we know is that people don't leave organizations, they leave leaders.
Yep.
And people are 3 times, this was by the Gallup group, 3 times more likely to stay over 5 years if they have consistent one-on-ones with their manager.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we get into these companies and we get into these organizations and we're focused so much on doing the work of the business that we don't invest the people doing the work of the business.
Right.
And I believe it's through well-intended but often misplaced, where we go, okay, what's your KPIs and what's your goals and what's your, you're doing all these things, but then you're not asking, how are you doing? How well do you know yourself? How can we develop you so that the better you are for this place? But most importantly, the better you are for every other place outside of these 4 walls of our organization.
Yeah.
So it's really a powerful thing when we invest in our people, because it increases morale, it reduces retention, and it helps people on a team go from siloed to synergy.
Right. We are going to take a quick break from today's interview because I am so excited to tell you about a new program that I've just rolled out. It includes 2 group coaching calls each month to help you create the lasting happiness you so desire. It's only a $50 a month investment in yourself, and you are worth it. So visit www.sandeescarlotta.com/courses to sign up. I hope you enjoy the rest of today's interview. And I would imagine nowadays, since so many companies are still remote,
It's more important now more than ever.
Right. And not only that, we've had a good 18 months of this pandemic, and it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. And I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I'm just being real here,
Yep.
right? I mean, we can wish this away all we want, but it's not happening. And, our brains are not hardwired for this type of long-term stress.
Right.
And so now more than ever, organizations really do need to make sure that they are really focusing in on their employees. And like you said, how are you doing?
Yeah. I saw a USA Today article that said 4.4 million people have resigned from their job in the last 18 months.
Wow.
They're calling this period the Great Resignation.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Because I think what we realized is that in a moment, our entire life can change. And so people who were on the fence about their calling and how it differed from their career, they're going, you know what, maybe I'll try this thing because, what do I have to lose? And so people are going into, other careers, or they're going into other companies, or they're going into business for themselves at a rate that has never been seen before. And it's leaving a gap in businesses. And so how you stop the Great Resignation in your own company or organization is how you develop your people. Because if your people feel needed and known, they'll stay through anything.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of other factors I think that are playing into that, because a lot of people don't want to work in a restaurant anymore.
Right.
There's so many changes have happened in the last 18 months, and so there's definitely a lot of factors there. But that's really, really great that you're doing this work. So you've got the Unleashed Champ, and you work with people one-on-one, and then organizations. Is there any other type of programs that you see coming down the road?
Oh, Sandee, the vision is big.
I'm only saying that because at the time of this recording, by the time it's released, there could be other things out there. So
there's definitely, I don't see anything in the foreseeable future outside of these 2 verticals, but I definitely see books. We launched a podcast back in March that is going really well and is really exciting. I see retreats, conferences. The vision is big. And I oftentimes go, okay, I think there's a difference between the reveal and the release of things. And so I've been revealed a lot, but I know that right now the release is these 2 things.
Nice. Now, what is your podcast called?
So it's Unleashed the Champ Leadership Podcast.
Nice.
Where we share success stories and practical leadership tips for you to be inspired to discover and chase after the championship run you were designed to be in.
I love it. That sounds amazing. So what is the best advice you've ever received?
Whoa. The best advice I have ever received. Okay, I'll go with this.
Okay.
I'm like, gosh, how much advice have I received? So I would say the best advice I've ever received is that you're less important than you think you are. And at the same time, you're more important than you think you are.
I love that. Yeah.
So
It's kind of a balance between, your ego.
Yeah, and 100%. And so it was advice given to me when I was just starting out in ministry, and I would use language as, especially as I was getting started in leadership, and I was kind of moving up the ranks, but I would say, "Oh, I'm just blank. I'm just blank. I've just done this." And someone said, "You're not just anything. You're you're more important than you think you are, and you're less important than you think you are." So there are people that will need you to speak up because you hold the key to their breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the same vein, there's times where you need to sit down, take notes, and learn, because there's people that are giving you wisdom that you don't need to shine in this moment, and you need to learn the balance that you're more important than you think you are, and in the same breath, you're less important than you think you are.
Yeah. And what also came to mind when you were just explaining that further is that sometimes, like, you need to just close your mouth and listen.
100%.
I see that so often that people are so busy, having that diarrhea of the mouth, so to speak, that they're not listening to what other people are saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So on the flip side of that, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
I think for me, the worst advice is you don't have to try so hard.
Mm.
So I am someone that by preference is very extroverted, very large personality. I like to be able to go into a room and read the room and adjust and really set the temperature of a room and not uh, respond to it. I believe that there's just things inside of me that allow me to create energy for environments and people, and sometimes, and I think it was well intended, but I think looking back, me being told, "Man, you don't have to do so much. You don't have to be so much. Like, you don't have to." It made me question who I felt I truly was. And so, though well intended, I think it would be the worst advice I got is that, hey, I'm gonna be who I am. I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna evolve. Who I am is changing. It's fluid. It's not static. But I know that there's some preferences of me that I'm not going to change because it's who I am. And I love to bring energy. I love to talk to people. I'm genuinely curious about their stories, and I I am oftentimes too much for people.
Mm.
And I've had to learn there's ebb and flow, just like with the best advice. But I think the worst advice is when we tell people to play small, think small, be small, and to dim who they naturally are.
Well, because in a way, it's almost like you're shaming them for who
Sure.
they are, right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So, so Kyle, this has been such a great conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience?
Absolutely, Sandy. I think the biggest theme of conversations that I'm having right now, it revolves around people's desire for peace. We want peace in our decisions. We want peace in our direction. We want peace in our relationships. We want peace in our internal lives and our mental health and all of these things. And here's what I'd share with your guest. The peace that you desire follows your action. It rarely precedes it.
Yeah.
So think about a decision that you had to make, or listeners, think about a decision that you're making right now. Before you make a decision and take action is when you're most stressed out, you're most worried, you most are tense about it. But once the decision is made, either you make it or it's made for you, the peace follows that. And so if you're doubting something, if you're going back and forth on something, just take the next right step. Even if you're 51% sure that's the right thing, take the step and the peace you desire will follow.
I love it. Yeah, because you have to take action at some point. Right. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a great conversation, and I just wish you all the best with your Unleash the Champ. That sounds amazing, your podcast, and I can't wait to hear about your books whenever, because I know there's a book in there. I was thinking that when we first started talking about it, and when you have that book, you need to reach back out to me, and we'll have you on again so we can promote your book.
Absolutely, Sandee. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. I really enjoyed that conversation today with Kyle, and he has so much wisdom to offer. You can check out his website at kylejsullivan.com. You can also see that in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can go to my website at sandeescarlotta.com. You can purchase my book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And as always, I hope that you and your family stay safe and healthy, and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and happiness. Take care, everyone.